Today we're going to take a look at Sigma, but this video, guys, is going to be quite special because this might be the new way of playing Sigma. We're going to take a look at Gesture, and Gesture is a highly flexible player. I know he's the main tank player for the London Spitfire. Actually, I know Gesture quite well, but Gesture is really good at a lot of heroes. He's absolutely insane on McCree. He's really good on Widow as well, but it looks like what's happened is Gesture has actually fit into the Sigma playstyle better than Fury has, and because they've got obviously short time frames to deal with because they're in the Overwatch League playoffs, they're sort of coming at this sort of rough and ready. But the thing is here, this is really, really cool. I'm going to hand you guys over to Josh. This is, I'm going to consider this an advanced guide to Sigma. Check this out, guys. It's amazing.
Yes, hello and welcome, ladies and gents. I am Josh, and today, well, yes, we got something special. So, the playoffs, or rather the play-ins, have been sort of running along in the background. We've had some great matches, but it also means that Sigma has finally graced us in the Overwatch League scene. He's been played at the very highest level by a whole bunch of different people, and we're going to take a quick look at some of the gameplay that we've seen from these Sigma players. Primarily, we're going to be looking at Gesture here on the Sigma, but we'll also take a quick glance at Envy every now and then, the Sigma on the opposite side. But without any further ado, let's begin. And so for those of you who follow the pro scene, you might be thinking, well, hang on, Gesture is the main tank player for London Spitfire. He should be the one playing the Orisa. He has a very good, a very competent Orisa. Why isn't he playing on that role? I can only speculate on the reasons why. Maybe he was the first one to practice it, maybe he just found it really works for him, but Gesture is really going to be playing in an off-tank playstyle. And there's going to be a couple of things we're going to be looking at in particular on what defines that off-tank playstyle for Gesture, namely on how he uses his barrier, on the sorts of things he's doing, on like the targets he's looking for, and how he uses his various cooldowns to keep him alive and to keep him functioning. Meanwhile, on the opposite side, Envy is going to be playing more of a traditional style in support of the Orisa. But let's find Gesture. There he is. Let's get back on him just for now. And yeah, we'll try and contrast the two where possible. We are mostly going to be focused on Gesture, though. The first big thing I want you guys to focus on is how Gesture uses his barrier. He does something very interesting with it, and I think this is really going to speak to this off-tank style, where he deploys it and then he'll put it away. Time and time again. He'll deploy it, it takes a bit of damage, and then he will put it away straight away. The other thing is also how he deals with this Doomfist, by the way. The Doomfist has been considered traditionally to be a very difficult problem for Sigma to try and solve. It's something of a hard counter, so we'll keep an eye on how that happens. But here is Gesture playing how Gesture really wants to play. He hates Izayaki. I don't know what Izayaki did to him at some point, but man, does Gesture not like this guy. He is going to spend most of this game hunting for him, but there's that Doomfist back causing him problems. The big thing with the Doomfist Sigma matchup is going to be that Gesture, every single time he even hears the Doomfist coming for him, he's going to be prepping a great big rock and trying to stop the Doomfist from punching him. After that, it's just all going to be damage mitigation, trying to get away, trying to do a bit of damage back, the sorts of things that you kind of expect to do against a Doomfist. But unfortunately, the London Spitfire have been pushed onto the back foot, so let's take a breather and take a quick look at Envy. Envy is going to be playing much more traditionally. He's playing much more in support of that Orisa. You can see right now his barrier is down. When it comes up, it's just primarily there to mitigate some damage from the Pharah here and there. It's just looking for ways to sort of sneak in a little bit more damage. He's much more passive with his barrier. Notice that he's leaving it up a lot more while Gesture is deploying and redeploying, deploying and redeploying constantly to try and get the most mileage out of that barrier that he possibly can. So Envy, much more traditional style. Meanwhile, Gesture, constantly looking for these flanks. He wants to get into the backline. He wants to use these orbs to try and get pressure on this Ana, who obviously, well, backs into a great big rock, takes a huge amount of damage, and will end up going down. He's going to do this time and time again. You'll notice there that he got picked up there by the Sigma ultimate, by the Gravitic Flux. What he did immediately when he got picked up was he activated that kinetic grasp, the suck, as I like to call it. And the reason why he activated the suck, it doesn't block the damage that you take when you get lifted or damage that you take when you get dropped, but what it does do is denies the Sigma the ability to do a little bit more damage to you while you're floating around. He can't shoot you, basically, because, hey, you got kinetic grasp up, and so you won't be killed when you drop down. It basically keeps him alive that little bit longer. You can see Youngjin there. Oh, well, bit of a collision. There we go, and now Gesture is just going to be the one to really aggressively take space, and this is one of the cooler things with this mixture of heroes with the Orisa Sigma, is that you can use the Sigma to sort of make up for the weaknesses of the Orisa. The Orisa are not very good at claiming ground, right? She puts down a barrier, it just stays there for ages, and it's really difficult to move forward. But with the Sigma involved, you can just consistently leapfrog with that Sigma barrier and go forward. So you can see here Gesture, again, much more free-form compared to the Orisa, although he likes playing in these very small environments, and I think this is something that you're going to see Sigmas develop more and more. There we go, the first Gravitic Flux. Unfortunately, Envy blocks it off there with a bit of shielding, but you're going to see Gesture do this as well quite a lot, which is where he finds these small environments. He likes playing in this little sheltered area here because the orbs are so much more dangerous here, the rock is more dangerous, the barrier just gets more mileage, he gets a lot out of all of the assets that he has available to him. This is something that Fury and Gesture do time and again, and it's absolutely beautiful. I'm even going to get a replay of it for you. And this is something that pros have got very good at over time, these Orisa combos. There's the Halt, and straight away, just a whacking great big rock into it, and Prophet just there to scoop up the final kills. It's beautiful to see. You're going to see these two do this time and again. It's really, really cool to see how good the pros have gotten at using this Halt with the rest of the team. And it kind of goes to show that as a Orisa, if you are playing Orisa, like calling out your Halts and planning your Halts is really, really valuable, not just to heroes like Roadhog, but also to heroes like Farah, to heroes like Sigma, to other heroes as well. We've seen actually Birdring capitalize off it as well. Doomfist love a good Halt and love landing on top of it. So it's definitely been something developing. But again, Gesture covering this angle, it's a very like small tight space. He loves fighting in this area, and again using this barrier, deploying, undeploying, deploying, undeploying, all just to make it go that little bit further. It's the same logic as playing Reinhardt, bringing up your barrier and dropping it every now and then just to take a little bit of damage behind it, just to get that little bit of extra mileage out of that barrier. It's such an important thing to do. However, we've got the other threat on the other side on Envy, and you notice that the enemy team is completely cornered. He's found himself a beautiful little angle here as well. And of course, one of the best ways to beat a Sigma, well, is to lob a big rocket in, but it also seems to delete Ana pretty well. Oh, dearie me. Again, just that same value, right? Exactly the same theory being applied. Finding this small environment, finding this little area where you can sort of bounce through, and then, well, he's going to go in for the ulti for the big finish, just to make sure that his team wins the map. So while we're waiting for the teams to get into position and start fighting properly, this is where I do want to sort of touch on this main tank, off tank debate. Like Sigma, he kind of can fulfill both roles. To me, he's more of an off tank that can occasionally slip into an off tank, into a main tank role rather. But you're going to see from Gesture that he's so effective when you do let him off the leash a little bit, when he can just sort of roam around a little bit, because he's so safe in doing it. He can basically consistently protect himself very, very efficiently as well, trying to find those little areas, those little gaps to sort of get in, do a little bit more damage here and there, and it really does play to his strengths. It's sort of using this barrier as a way for him to move around and get a lot of value. That said, also the team is protecting him and doing a great job of making sure that he can do these things. You saw, I think, Prophet there actually knocking away the enemy Doomfist, Youngjin, and making sure that, well, he's not going to get value. There's Izayaki. Oh, God, our favorite target, absolutely 100%. Just getting into that backline, causing problems. Here we see a duel between the Doomfist and Gesture. Gesture does not want to take that fight. He's more interested in just getting to those backlines. But again, you notice, the moment that uppercut landed, Gesture starts using that accretion, starts channeling that great big rock, and then just yeets it at the enemy Doomfist to try and mitigate as much damage as possible, though. Meanwhile, Envy still doing Envy things, playing more around the Orisa. Now he's just on cleanup duty. This is not where Sigma is at his strongest, unfortunately. He seems to struggle a little bit here. Of course, if the enemy team does end up going into that small area at the back, well, he's going to have an easier time there. And there's, again, that Halt synergy, just working with his teammates. He's got to be careful with that barrier. I wouldn't mind seeing him let it sit just for a little while. This is something that I think every player who's picking up Sigma sort of needs to do. There we go. Just let it sit, let it recharge. You really got to find your moments to be able to do that. But the big thing here is that Envy does have that ultimate. He's going to want to use it. He brings it out here and just gets Gesture. I've seen this time and time again, especially with pro players like doing a great job with this, which is where you see them sort of spot out, oh, hey, I can like really do a huge amount here. I can get like 2 or 3 people, but one of those people is an Orisa, for example. And the Orisa, well, she just gives no heck. She just hits Fortify, and she is absolutely A-okay, and everything is rosy for her. But again, Envy, now he's sort of playing more on the flanks as his team is winning. He can go and help clean up, look for a couple of angles here and there, and maybe get a little bit of value. Things looking dicey for the London Spitfire at the moment as we go back to Gesture. There we go. And yeah, they're having a tough time, but Gesture almost does have that ultimate, and like Gravitic Flux is such a big deal. If you can find the right targets with it, it will absolutely destroy them. It's not 100% guaranteed kills, but it's pretty close, like especially when you lift them, you do a couple of shots, you do a little bit of damage here and there. Oh boy, does it get the work done. So again, you're seeing Gesture, he's looking for these flanks, he's looking for some kind of way in to get through, and well, yeah, well, while he's taking that time, the Fire does kind of just destroy his entire team. Oh dearie me, oh dearie me. This is the disadvantage of playing in this flanking style, right? You do lose that extra power of having that, you know, if Gesture was there, he could have maybe barriered some of it, he could have maybe kinetic grasped some of that damage, and maybe blocked bits of it here and there, but instead he's looking more for the flanks. But you're seeing Spitfire change up their lineup quite dramatically. Now, I do like normal player coaching, right? I get VODs sent to me by normal players. It's a lot like Overanalyze, but generally just a lot longer form, a little bit more serious, I would say, overall as well. And one of the things I noticed with Sigma players in general is that they aren't very good at just deploying their barriers right in front of their own faces, something that Gesture is very good at. Here you see something really cool, by the way. The Doomfist is around the corner, and so the lift doesn't actually affect him that much. If you can find a way to break line of sight from that Sigma ultimate, you are way more likely to survive it. It's the ability for Sigma to lift you, do that initial damage, and then do that half damage, but also just be able to hit you in the face while you're floating. That's the really big deal. So Doomfist getting around the corner there, really big deal. Yeah, where was I? I was making a point. I remember. Okay, so yeah, deploying barriers right in front of you. I've seen so many Sigma players who just can't control their barrier very well, and I think if you do really want to get into Sigma, the ability to just deploy a barrier right in front of you is such an important skill to build up. It's such an important skill to generate and to learn and to master. Like being able to place that barrier where you want it is crucial. It's absolutely key, and being able to put it right in front of you when you need it in a split second, well, that's going to be super important to your developing skill as a Sigma. You can see Gesture is very good at that. Okay, well, Dragons on the spring back. You notice the Doomfist, not too interested in him at the moment. And again, he's playing in more of this defensive style, sort of waiting for the Dragons to fire all of their resources out to get everything done. And then going back to that Baptiste ult, catches the Doomfist. Absolutely superb there. Just builds up that accretion as the Doomfist ult comes in, lobs it at him as he lands. And once that threat is gone, well, he can kind of do as he pleases. And what he wants to do is a little bit of bullying. Let's join Envy here. This is always just such a rough position. It's never good. Okay, so if you are unfamiliar, by the way, like this is a very important thing to do. To stall divas, to stall people in general if you can. It slows down their respawns, means the enemy offensive is not going to be as quick to come out next time. So, little bit of stall in there, just giving them a huge amount of value. Prophet with one hell of a kill on the ding. That is nuts. Luckily, Coma's there to res it, but hey, it's all time in the bank for London Spitfire, and as you can see, we're coming up to the last fight, right? 99% to 75%, there's probably just one more good fight in it, and Gesture, he's almost got that ultimate, but again, you can see, he wants to get into this position where he can shoot into this small room, and he can see the Ana, he can see Izayaki, he can see his hated foe, his nemesis, and you notice he's barely even looking at the rest of the team, like he's putting this barrier up to protect him, but oh, there he is, there's target number one. Will he go for him? No, I don't think he will. He's just fishing at the moment, but Izayaki goes on point just to make sure it's contested, and literally solo ults him. He literally just goes for it. If that was a Graviton Surge, I think he'd still go for it. And then gets even better, gets the second support. The res did go off, but man, that is such huge value off the back of Gesture, and yeah, there's a little bit of a C9 happening at the end here. I do think the Spitfire would have won the fight regardless, but you can see that Gesture is using this ability of Sigma to be such a single target threat to go into the back line and cause problems. Now, I've been remiss in my duty slightly because I didn't tell you guys the stakes of this match because I wanted you to focus on the Sigma, but this is actually the last of 8 maps that these teams have played. These guys have been playing for such a long time now in this series, and this is everything to play for. Whoever loses this map, whoever loses this one Lighthouse round, is going to be out of the Overwatch League for Season 2. So it's kind of a big deal for these teams, and there's a lot of pressure on the line. So it's always very impressive to me to see players play really well when the stakes are so insanely high. It makes me super happy. But we're going to see Gesture again, and I really want to contrast this. Envy is currently set up here on the high ground with the rest of his team. Gesture, meanwhile, is actually fishing around. He's looking around on this low ground, again, in this very close environment, in this little close space down here. He wants to fight there, and he's found Izayaki, and he hates Izayaki, and he wants to hit Izayaki, but he can't hit Izayaki, so he's having a bit of a miserable time. But you're going to see, again, this very different style between these two tanks. Envy protecting his support, and Gesture, well, trying to kill that support, basically. It's a little bit of a Mexican standoff between the two Flying Dutchmen. So it's pretty awesome. I really like this sort of thing, where you're seeing two heroes Same heroes played in two very different styles. But you're seeing slowly but surely Gesture is trying to find his way in. He's trying to find a little bit of damage here and there. He's also creating problems where Prophet can then also assist in this flank. He's finally getting the damage onto Izayaki, forcing him away, forcing him onto the low ground. Once that Ana is gone, once that Ana is forced away to heal, well, she's effectively dead in the fight. If she's going away and she can't see anybody, well, that's a huge deal. One of the things that pro players talk about a lot when playing with an Ana is playing in the Ana's line of sight. If the Ana can't see you, she can't heal you, and she's effectively gone. So Gesture's pressure there really helped in making sure that the rest of his team had a great time in pushing forward. Once you get rid of that Ana, well, yeah. Also, just dirty. It's just dirty. Let's get a replay on that, because holy moly. Look at this thing fly. Whoop, too fast. Whoop. Boosh. Oh. Deding he's just not got a clue. He's just so confused. Like, how the hell did that even hit? Good lord, Gesture. The power of teamwork, ladies and gentlemen. Those Halt combos are so good. Definitely something to work on if you're an Orisa player. Calling those Halts out and making sure that you're getting value out of them every single time. You're seeing Gesture here, by the way. He's now playing into these corridors where this Sigma barrier fits so snugly, making sure that Birdring is a-okay. Notice that once that nano boost goes out, though, his playstyle completely changes. He's completely locked in on isolating Deding, something that Fury cannot do, right? This is like a very, again, standard kind of off-tank thing. If there's a threat the main tank cannot handle very well, well, you send the off-tank off to go and deal with it. In this case, blocking off Deding's damage. And even seeing Gesture occasionally take those moments to look for where the pharmacy is, to look for a target to try and get, and try and like block that damage, or just try and maybe land a bit of a rock throw. Maybe can get Coma here. Come on. Oh no, Coma. Oh no, they've left him. They've abandoned him. Oh god, he's down. Just, it's so sad to see a Mercy drifting off into the distance. Okay, Gesture has his ultimate. He's going to want to use it in this next fight. Now, of course, he's going to be looking to get as many people as possible, but what he really wants as well is those targets that he can kill, those 200 hit point targets. Manages to spot a big old pile of people. Izayaki eats a grenade and then eats that follow-up damage, and it's that follow-up damage that is so key to getting that value off the Sigma ult every single time, making sure that you're in position to be able to do that. Doesn't quite hit that rock, unfortunately. That one would have been even more incredible, but it's a brilliant thing to behold. Okay, one fight left in it kind of for Dragons. Envy almost has his ultimate ready. I want to see what he can do with it. Hopefully you guys want to see what he can do with it as well. Again, very, very similar circumstances, right? We want to try and get those supports and get that backline, but unfortunately, he gets the tanks. And you notice, Fury, he doesn't care. Gesture, he just activates that kinetic grasp, and he's a-okay. Eventually does get taken down by Youngjin, so now we're back on board with Envy. And again, you're going to see Envy do similar to what Gesture was doing before, right? He wants to try and block off that fire where possible, but he also needs to deal with the Mercy. And oh my god, there's just too many threats to handle. There is just too much going on for one lone man to try and stop him. And as a result, well, the London Spitfire end up taking the map. Okay guys, so that is a quick look at Sigma, played by a pro. It's always very interesting to me to take a look at these pro players and sort of figure out the playstyle they're adopting, what they're doing with the hero, what they're looking for value. And the big thing here is, well, I never really thought of Sigma on the flanks super much before, and maybe you guys didn't as well, but he's actually very good at getting around to the backline, getting into the enemy rear end effectively, and just being able to combo down one of the supports if they're vulnerable to it, especially a hero like Ana, who's generally very protected and very hidden away. Sigma can get back there, do a lot of damage to her, and maybe put enough pressure on her to cause problems, or just combo her and kill her. Very effective on these sort of rotation-based maps like control maps often are. The other things is small tips, just like dealing with the Doomfist, using accretion nice and early, using that kinetic grasp to block whatever extra damage you can find, and yeah, just getting all this extra value out of your barrier as well. When you're playing in that off-tank role, when you don't need this barrier to protect everybody else, it's more just for yourself or just to block one source of damage, bringing it up, dropping it down, making sure that you're getting as much out of it as possible, not leaving it to get shot, is going to be a very big deal. Just make sure you're putting it up when it's needed, guys. Please. Please.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Josh. All right, guys, so let me know what you think about this video in the comments below. Gesture is amazing at this hero, but I think Sigma is super strong anyway. But it looks like this could be a new way of playing Sigma. Absolutely awesome stuff. All right, guys, remember you can follow me on Twitter, which is @Stylosa. It's also the same on Instagram. If you really enjoyed the video, guys, make sure you like the video. It helps an absolute ton. As well, subscribe to the channel, tap the bell, and all that good stuff. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Toodaloo.